Well, good day everyone, it's Graham from Great Off-Road Adventures. Welcome back to another episode. Now in this one here, I want to talk about the fact that it's been 2 years since we've replaced the engine in the 200 series. And was that the right decision or not? So without any further ado, let's get stuck straight into this video. From the tough tracks to the remote tracks, from our campsites to the workshops. Come along and check out Great Off-Road Adventures. Your next episode is just seconds away. Nice. Probably the best point to start from is recapping what we've done in the last 2 years. Well, immediately after we put the engine in, we went down to Broke Inlet. That same year in 2020, we had COVID, which sort of screwed up a lot of things. But fortunately, being in Fortress WA, we were still allowed to do a fair bit of travel within WA. We snuck in a wildflowers trip with Andrew Fan. We also went up and did Ningaloo Station, the Kennedy Ranges, and Dirk Hartog Island. And now moving into 2021, we did by far our biggest trip ever, which was all the way up into the Kimberley over 6 weeks. We then have done a trip down to Esperance towards the end of the year and a bunch of other small weekend stuff in there as well. That's our Great Off-Road trips. In amongst all that too, we've done multiple events for variety, which all end up being, quite a few thousand Ks per event, and that all adds up. So we put the engine in the car at 285,000 Ks. We are now up to 340,000 Ks. So we've done well over 50,000 Ks on the new engine. How's that going? Well, it's going really well. I'll be completely honest with you. I have not had to put a spanner on this engine. We've just done its normal servicing. It's had the oil changed every 5,000 Ks. All the filters and stuff done every 10,000 Ks. Super, super reliable. And that's what you'd expect from a brand new engine, right? In that time, we have had a couple little issues with the car. We've had to rebuild some rear axle seals and rear wheel bearings. We've had front diff pinion bearing fail, which resulted in new front diff. So yeah, there's been ongoing maintenance of the car, not hiding that, but everything that we did surrounding the replacement engine has been perfect. Now, we certainly did things at the time supports that maintenance-free reliability side of things. And so, we replaced the starter motor, we replaced the flex plate, we replaced engine mounts, we replaced the whole cooling system, all of that. So all of those old components that potentially, we could have retained and could have given us issues, they were all replaced. So they were all brand new, just like the engine. We also did other things at the time that I kept secret. And that's really what I want to talk about today. What did we do 2 years ago that we've now done 2 years worth of testing and all of that we can now report back on and say that was the right decision to make at the time. The first thing we did, and the first secret I'm going to share with you, is the fact that the airbox in this car is a Moonlight Fabrications stainless steel airbox. We did not drive 1 meter in the workshop on the standard airbox. In the video, we started the car up on the standard airbox. The guys at AMV then had to recode the injectors. Whilst they did that, I promptly unbolted the plastic shitty standard airbox and put in the Moonlight Fabrications stainless steel one. So in the third installment of the Dusted Engine series, for lack of a better term to call it, I talked about and I looked at the Toyota airbox and how it was warped, and I looked at the filters that, standard Toyota filter and what an aftermarket filter look like and the massive discrepancies between those filters. And then I touched on at the end the fact that stainless steel airbox solves all those issues. You can get much more clamping force on the seal of the filter, and it's stainless steel, it can't deform. I told a little white lie that was just a display airbox I'd borrowed. That is my airbox. It was my airbox at the time. I'd bought it, everything, and that is the one that has subsequently ended up in the car for the last 55,000 Ks, 2 years. How is that Moonlight Airbox going? Well, I'll put a couple clips up on the screen. Firstly, I want to talk about what conditions we've taken it through, and then, you know, talk about how well it's performed. So yeah, 55,000 Ks, the car's done plenty of off-road trips in that time, as I've talked about. A lot of them up north in dry, dusty, harsh conditions. And those variety trips I touched on, they are by far the hardest trips that my car does from a workload point of view. Not necessarily hardcore four-wheel driving, but from a workload point of view, we are up every morning. Jess and I are videoing the events, photographing the events. The events are moving, they're vehicle-based fundraising events. So we have to drive in a convoy with vehicles, they're off-road. So we are driving in very thick dust a lot of the time. On average, the events are around the 2,000 kilometre mark. Some are longer, some are slightly shorter, depending on what region we go to. So yeah, the variety events absolutely are so dusty, and that's where this car absolutely, you know, gets abused, really. We work it very hard. We maintain it, but we work it hard. So yeah, we've done the Ruby road trip, we've done the four-wheel drive and the bash in those 2 years. We've done those 3 big events, all off-road events. This year in particular, we did the variety bash up into Pilbara, and it was really dusty. And on that event alone, it was only 2,500 Ks of off-road. I started with a brand new filter, and I replaced the panel filter in that airbox twice during that event. So yeah, literally 2,500 Ks of chasing cars and driving in the dust. We went through 3 air cleaners. That is adverse conditions. Like you won't find worse conditions than that. We've also obviously done Dirk Hartog Island as a big group, driving in the dust as well. So this thing has gone through a heap of dust. I have not once wiped out or cleaned out the Moonlight Airbox, as in the lid or anything. As you will see it today, is how it has been that whole time. I've got other clips where we've come back from a variety event and the whole engine bay is covered in dust, and I'll put it up on the screen now. And then we've looked at the airbox and it's been pristinely clean. Like, there is not a speck of dust that gets into the engine side of the airbox. There's nothing in the lid, there's nothing in the intake track. It's awesome. I joke with Kel and Ty at Moonlight. When I go and buy my new filters, I show them the photos of my old ones, and Kel always tells me, you're making mud pies. And honestly, have a look at the condition of these filters. I'm going to put photos up on the screen. Like, they are chock-a-block full of dust and dirt and all sorts, but they are doing their job, keeping the air going through to that engine perfectly clean. So yeah, that was secret number 1. There was no way I was going to spend 30 grand on a new engine and all these supporting components, like I touched on earlier, getting changed and replaced with new components, to then risk that on a standard Toyota airbox. Certainly one that, in my opinion, and from what I had looked at, had led to the failure of the first engine. It's been camera trickery and those sort of bits and pieces that has meant that I haven't revealed it. There's been plenty of people in the comment sections on that dusted engine video that have said, you know, why didn't you run the stainless steel airbox? Why are you continuing to use the Toyota one? Surely you're just leaving yourself open for failures. Yeah, I never ran the Toyota airbox. The only reason why I made it appear that I was because we've just literally ticked past it. I had a 2-year warranty with 40,000 kilometers from Toyota for my parts. So for me, I had to, in that time frame, just make sure that I towed the party line and that there was no recourse for them to come back if I had a separate issue with the engine, you know, an unrelated issue. I didn't want to give them any possible recourse to say that's not a standard part. So I know the way warranty works, they have to prove that the part led to the failure and all that. But I just, to be honest guys, I didn't want the heartache and the hassle. I just wanted, on appearance's sake, to say, there you go, fix it. Moonlight Airbox, I'm kicking myself honestly that I never did it when I first bought the car. Again, back then there was enough information going around, but I probably just buried my head in the sand a little bit, and I probably didn't monitor the situation as closely as I should have. My own fault as the owner of the vehicle. I put too much faith in my mechanic that he was going to tell me that he'd found something that was wrong and we would work out a solution then. So yeah, my own fault. But anyway, lesson learned, solution sorted, and it's all happy days. Okay, so let's look at the inside of the Moonlight Airbox. So what I love about the Moonlight Airbox is the fact that literally it's just these 3 screws to undo it. And it just opens up like that. As you can see, it is completely clean in there. A few dirty fingerprints, but yeah, not a speck of dust in there at all. Just completely clean, which is what you want. Having a look at the filter, and this is how easy it is to do it. And again, why I just love this airbox. Oh, she's dirty. A few bees in there. But yeah, that's how easy it is to inspect the filter. All right, everyone, just got a very quick offer to you all. If you're looking at getting your own Moonlight Airbox, now is a really good time to do so, because I've been able to organise a 10% discount code. So the code is GREATOFFROAD, all one word. You'll get 10% off any Moonlight Airbox kit that you purchase from Moonlight online. You need to utilise that code at the checkout to receive your discount. And you can't utilise that code in conjunction with any other offers or discounts. There's no rain checks, and that code needs to be used before the 30th of June 2022. So you got a couple months to do it, but don't miss that date. The code again is GREATOFFROAD, all one word, to get yourselves 10% off a Moonlight Airbox. Now, this video has been in no way endorsed or commissioned or put together by Moonlight. It is something I've organised off my own back, completely off my own back. 2 years ago, I bought my own Moonlight Airbox kit out of my own hard-earned money. I got no special treatment at the time. I've used that product extensively, as you have just seen, and as you can see, I absolutely love how well it works. The results really speak for themselves. So if you have dust issues, if you are concerned or you just want to get a high performance airbox, now is a really good time to do so. So a big thank you to Kel and Ty from Moonlight for generously offering us that discount code, and obviously to all of you, my viewers, if you want to take advantage of it, save yourself 10%, now's the time to do it. Anyway, let's get back to the video and check out what the second secret was. What is the second secret that I need to reveal? Well, the second secret was, like I said way back 2 years ago, we put new turbos in the car. Nah, I wasn't completely honest with you at that time. We put new modified turbos in the car. Only lightly modified, bearing in mind we're still running the standard injectors. I didn't want to replace brand new injectors, because we got brand new injectors with new motor, with bigger ones just yet, because, you know, again, I just spoke about it before, I didn't want any recourse for Toyota to turn around and say, well, you've changed that, that's your problem. I wanted it to be as standard as possible. But in short, I spoke at great length with Mark and the crew at AMV, who put me onto their turbo specialist, which is Grant from Performance Turbos, and I spoke with all of them to work out what was going to be the best course of action here. Some context for you. Brand new turbos from Toyota, are $2,000 each, so $4,000 for the pair. Rebuilt standard turbos, reconditioned standard turbos are about $1,000 each. And then from there, when you recondition the turbo, you can do various other bits and pieces to it. So I spoke with Grant, spoke with Mark, and what we ended up doing was retaining the standard rear exhaust housing and turbine. So there's been no changes to the back half of the turbo. The front half of the turbo, Grant has enlarged the housing slightly, so he's high-flowed it. And what that has allowed us to do is fit a slightly larger compressor wheel or compressor turbine, which allows us to move more air through that front half of the turbo. What are the benefits from that? Well, we can move more air into the engine, and obviously with that we can either run the engine slightly leaner, which means more air, slightly less fuel in the air-fuel mix, or we can add more fuel and have more power. So from day one, again, this engine rolled out with the modified turbos on it, but on a completely stock standard tune. The modified turbos, they were making about 18, 19 PSI, which is completely standard tune-up in terms of boost and standard tune-up in terms of fuel injection and all that. So what that meant is we were running an ultra conservative and very lean air-fuel ratio. So we were actually, when we put it on the dyno standard, it was running a 19.2 to 1 air-fuel ratio. 19.2 parts of air to 1 part fuel. Now standard, the VDJs run anywhere from about 18 to 18.5. So we were already on the leaner side of that. Now what the leaner side means with a diesel is the engine runs cooler. You don't get nearly as much black smoke out the back, and it's just all round better. What we did is we broke the engine in on the completely standard tune-up, made sure that it was all happy and there were no other issues going on. So we got the car on the road at the end of February, and about 6 months later in September, we actually then put the car back onto the dyno, and this was the third secret. I was always going to, having had the car tuned on the original motor, I was always going to get the car retuned with the new motor in it. They just drive so much better, in my opinion. So yeah, went and spoke with Mark at AMV. We'd broken the engine in. It had a couple of services done on already. We knew it was running completely normally, and we put it on the dyno. We did turn it up a little bit. We definitely have left some in the tank, but again, like I said, we're still on standard injectors. This is a touring car. I want it to be reliable, so we didn't want to jeopardize that reliability by, you know, unnecessarily reaching for goals that we don't need. Stock standard, when I first bought the car, when we first dynoed it, it made 164 horsepower at all 4 tyres and 440 newton meters of torque. Now, that might appear a little bit on the low side, but you've got to remember that was running bigger tyres, and we're on a 4-wheel drive dyno, and the difference with a 4-wheel drive dyno to a 2-wheel drive dyno is astronomical, because the engine is having to turn twice as much, twice as many tyres on the 4-wheel drive dyno, so you get a lot lower but a lot more true power and torque figure from the 4-wheel drive dyno than you do from the 2-wheel drive dyno. 2-wheel drive dyno figures are way overinflated because you're disconnecting the whole front drive shaft, the whole front diff, the CVs and the front tyres. All that is taken out of the equation. The engine only has to spin the rear drive shaft, the rear diff and the rear tyres. 164, 440 newton meters was what we got the very first time we ran the car on the dyno. And that was when the car had 150,000 Ks on it. Brand new engine, modified turbos. We went onto the dyno and we made a flat 200 horsepower on the standard tune. Little bit of tickling, little bit of modifying, tuning, left that all to Mark. He is the expert after all. And we made a very respectable 235 horsepower and 700 newton meters of torque. That is very good considering we've essentially come from 164 and 440 up to 235 and 700. I guess that's the benefit of having a new fresh motor, and also, the better turbos, the bigger exhaust, the better airbox, all of these little pieces add up to the equation. Now, the 235 horsepower and 700 newton meters was made on bigger tyres again from the first tune, for the first 164. Now, what we did when we had on the dyno, we did go to see what it could do, and we ran up into the 250 horsepower mark, but we decided let's not push it, let's turn it down. Again, like I touched on before, to run that high power, we were running a 17.5 to 1 air fuel ratio, and we were working those injectors hard. We were right up there on the duty cycle, and it was just unnecessary. Like, don't get me wrong, I love having more power, and it's great for towing the camper trailer now, but that 235, 240 horsepower, 700 newton meters is more than ample. So why push it, and why jeopardize that reliability? Those are my 3 dirty little secrets that we did when we replaced the engine and following the engine replacement. And now that warranty and all that is all out of the way, it's time for me to share them with you. Drop your comments, questions in the comment section below. I'm sure there's going to be some there, and I'm happy to go through and answer as many of them as I can. Like I said, I didn't want this to be a super technical and comprehensive video. It was more just a wrap up on, had we made the right decision to replace our dusted motor with a new one and retain the car? And having done 2 years of really good traveling and not having to put a spanner or a tool onto any of the work that was done when we replaced the engine, yeah, I would say it was a great decision for us to make. We spoke about it at the time in those 3 videos. Do we sell the 200 and go and buy another car, like another wagon or a dual cab ute, something like that, and build that up to be as capable and as well modified and as suited for traveling as this? But to be honest, guys, if we had done that, I still think 2 years on, that new car wouldn't look anything like this. So for us to start afresh, I just don't think it would have been, we wouldn't be in the same position we are today, and we wouldn't have done the same trips that we've done in the last 2 years if we had have elected to go and start afresh with a new car. All the work that we did mechanically has been faultless, and we've done a heap of really good fun trips over the last 2 years. I think all that added up pretty much seals the deal in my mind, that replacing the engine in the 200 series was unequivocally, without a doubt, the right decision for us. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with my thoughts? Because yeah, you know, it's 30 grand. It was a big exercise. We're going to end the video off there. Leave your questions in the questions and comment section below. Happy safe adventuring. Stay safe on the tracks and trails. If you've watched all the way to the end of this video, you haven't subscribed yet, please go down, smash that big red button and subscribe to the channel. If you found the video helpful or useful or anything like that, make sure you give us a like, share the video and give us a comment. You know the deal. Stay safe on the tracks and trails. If we don't see you out there one day, we'll see you in the next video.